Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com was brought to you by Syngenta Canada, Alberta Wheat Commission, and C&M Seeds.
Here on RealAgriculture.com by Travis Long, the General Manager of the Boundary Trail Railway Company in South Central Manitoba. Thanks for taking some time to talk with us during this busy time here, Travis.
No problem.
So, Boundary Trail Railway Company, I guess first of all explain who BTRC is.
Boundary Trail Railway Company is a farmer-owned short-line railway. We operate 23 miles of mainline track that used to be owned by CP. Originating in Morden on our east end, where we interchange with Canadian Pacific, and operating to the west through Darlingford, Manitou, and out to Binney, which is the end of track. So we're a company that's owned by 90 local shareholders. A large majority are local farmers.
You're also a producer car administrator for these farmers?
We aren't the administrator ourselves. We're just the transportation end of things, but we do deal with a number of different grain companies that administrate producer cars. Yes.
So how does that process work when it comes to farmers looking to use rail cars on your line?
Basically, if farmers are interested in shipping by producer car, the first thing for them to do is to connect with one of the administrators that's trying to originate grain by producer car. And we act as a bit of a liaison, trying to connect those buyers with farmers in the area. So I'll often distribute information that I get from administrators looking for grain out to our contact list of customers. And those administrators will put out pricing bids. Customers can evaluate those, talk to the administrators directly. If a farmer ends up seeing a deal that he likes with one of those administrators and enters a contract, basically sells his grain to one of the administrators, then our railway company gets involved to manage the logistics of that. So once a sale is in place, we can get involved, help with the ordering of the cars through the CGC, facilitate, the location that they'll be loading the cars at. We work very closely with 4 locally owned facilities that are sited on our track, and each of those facilities can take pre-delivery of grain from farmers and store it temporarily until we deliver the cars to those sites for transloading.
So you submit the application to the Grain Commission for a producer car?
In most cases, we will do the applications. We definitely provide that service. There are a handful of administrators that like to do the car ordering themselves. But for the ones that would prefer that we do the ordering, yes, we place the orders on farmers' behalf.
So how do you find out if you're getting cars or if your orders are being filled?
The CGC puts out a weekly forecast or an allocation list, and the list that we receive from the CGC will list all the cars that they have allocated to stations along our property for a given grain service week. And we get those lists 2 weeks in advance of cars being placed by CP in an ideal situation. Of course, the last 12 months or so, CP has been behind on filling orders on time. So those lists are scheduled on a weekly basis, but they're not necessarily accurate to CP's spot plan, if that makes sense.
Speaking of that plan, is there any predictability or transparency to when cars come?
Unfortunately, no. We do have close contact with CP planning. There's an office in Calgary that does the planning for Manitoba producer cars. We talk to that office multiple times every week to try and get a sense of what they have planned for us. But even when they've got a planned set of cars coming our way, the actual delivery timing of that set of cars is still questionable until they essentially arrive at interchange. So it's definitely difficult for us to know with a lot of accuracy how many cars we'll receive and specifically when we'll receive them. But we have a general idea week to week of whether we'll be receiving a set of cars.
We hear terms spotting and allocating. Can you explain the difference of what those mean?
Sure. When the CGC provides an allocation for a car, that means that they have received an application from myself on behalf of a producer. It means that they have agreed to request a car for that producer from the Class 1 railway. So when they've agreed to do the request, that means they've allocated and authorized a producer to load a car, and they've requested a car be placed by CP for loading. When CP fills that order, that means that they have assigned a car against that order, and they have placed it on a train and delivered it to the interchange point where our railway can pick that car up, carry it to the loading position that the producer wants to load the car at, and spot the car there for loading.
So spotting is following through on the allocation.
That's right. Yeah. When we perform the spot, that means we've carried the car to the loading point and left it ready for the producer to load, or for our facilities to transload on the producer.
From a farmer's perspective, what are the advantages in using producer cars?
Well, in the last year and a half, one of the significant advantages is price. Our administrators, now that we have a fairly large group of them, are quite competitive, especially to the line company bids. In the last year, our customers have been earning anywhere from 20 cents a bushel to over $1 a bushel better pricing on their contracts than what they would be getting at the local elevator companies. So that's been a really good competitive option for us. There are lots of other benefits that aren't necessarily cash in pocket benefits, but in terms of time and traveling distance. So our delivery points for our customer base are extremely local. Most guys are delivering 15 miles or less to one of our facilities. So their time on the road, their time to move a certain number of bushels is reduced quite a bit, and a lot of our customers appreciate that, rather than having to drive 45 minutes to an hour one way to deliver to an elevator, possibly to sit in line at that elevator for a period of time to get unloaded. Only being able to deliver to those elevators during regular business hours. We contrast that. Our facilities are available 24/7, so a lot of our customers will deliver grain at night or early in the morning before they head to the field. So the facilities are always accessible. They're on the road for less time overall. And when they start hauling, they know how much they're going to be able to haul. Sometimes when you're hauling to an elevator, I understand that's not the case. You take a couple of loads and then you might be cut off. When you're hauling here, you'll know that you're hauling in 90-ton increments, and if there's a certain amount of space set aside for you, then you know how much you can work on.
How would you describe the grain that moves on your line and where it's going? Is it mainly wheat and oats?
Primarily hard red spring wheat. We've been in operation, this is our 6th year now, and 90% of the shipments have been hard red spring wheat. The balance in the past has been oats. This particular year, we're starting to move some winter wheat now as well. As we bring on more administrative companies, their interests and their markets are starting to expand. So we'll move a fair bit of winter wheat this fall, lots of spring wheat, some oats. We're still hoping that we can find a canola outlet by rail, because we recognize that a significant amount of the acreage in our area is put to canola every year, and so that's an opportunity for us to expand our volumes if we can start to find shipping destinations for canola. But there are crushing facilities in the immediate area that provide a lot of competition against that. So.
What's the destination for most of these cars?
It's quite variable. Very little would go west, but in the last year and a half, a lot of our grain has gone to Thunder Bay or to points in the northeastern U.S.
There was some uncertainty about producer cars and the status of them when we saw the changes to the wheat board back in 2012. How has that impacted PTRC?
There definitely was uncertainty leading up to the changes taking effect with the board, and for the year subsequent to the changes taking effect. Essentially, during that period of time, we only had a couple of grain companies administering producer cars, and they were not that aggressive. It seemed like the companies that we're now dealing with at that time were taking some time to evaluate their position in the marketplace. That took about a year. So about a year after the wheat board changes were in effect, we started to see companies coming to us with a fairly clear marketing plan, knowing how much grain they were going to look to originate. They've become quite aggressive, and it's led to us shipping record volumes for our business in the last year and a half. And we think that aggressiveness is going to continue throughout this coming crop year. At least early indications are that we should have a pretty busy year again this year.
Did the backlog over the last year lead farmers to look for alternatives for getting their crop to market, and did that drive them to producer cars?
Honestly, I think the backlog in shipping industry-wide drove interest our way. We definitely were not current in our shipping, but I don't think we were in as rough a shape as probably most of the line companies were. And so that meant that there were a lot of producers looking at us as their possible outlet when they couldn't get delivery at the line companies. So right now we're still behind on our orders, but we're very close to being current, and we think we're in relatively good shape compared to other producer car loaders across the prairies.
And then finally, I guess you mentioned already, you think the future is bright when it comes to producer cars, I guess particularly for someone like yourself who's aggregating them?
We do. We've always been very optimistic about it. It doesn't mean that it wasn't challenging when the changes to the wheat board took effect, but farmers are pretty resilient, and we assumed that we would be able to find a way out of that challenging period. And the customer base we have, guys are educated, they're fairly aggressive, they're astute marketers, and we've been able to find some opportunities and connect with some administrators that are interested in Manitoba grain. We think we'll always be able to manage the producer car situation reasonably well.
Do you see opportunity for producer cars in meeting some of the growing demand for identity preserved crops and making that connection between the farm and the end user?
We do. Nothing concrete at this point, but we have had, especially, I'll use an example, we have Quaker Oats buying a fairly decent amount of oats out of the area here. One of the main reasons they like buying oats by producer car is because of that preservation, that chain of custody. They know that a carload that's been shipped by a producer has come from a specific farm. It's usually a consistent variety of oats as well, and that's good for them on their end with milling process at their mill. They know that they can bin a bunch of one variety at a time and then send that through as a batch. So that consistency is really important. If they like the quality of a carload that gets to them, they can trace that carload right back to a farm, possibly even right back to a field. They can look at the agronomy of what produced that type of quality, and they can try to replicate that in the future. So producer cars present that opportunity for chain of custody and traceability. So we think that there will likely be other opportunities to exploit that in the future for sure. We've had very informal discussions about that with a couple of potential buyers, and that's just in the very early stages right now. It's one of the exciting opportunities we want to pursue in the